If you like an emotional read that is equally funny and hopeful, this is the book for you. If you like a protagonist who is grumpy and old, it's this one for you. And if you absolutely love unexpected friendships, then you better go get this book right now. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my page. When I first started this booktube, I really wanted to get into book summaries, book reviews, but as you probably know, that takes quite a bit of prep work and research, so I haven't been able to do it as much. But today we are talking about A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman. This is quite an old book, actually. It came out in 2012. I think it started to become popular last year in America because of the film A Man Called Ove, but A Man Called Ove it's just been on my mind. I read it about a month ago, and then I watched both film adaptations, the Swedish one and the American one, and we should talk about this. So starting off with a summary of the story, Ove is a 59-year-old man who is just kind of fed up with life. He first comes off a little bit bitter, a bit grumpy, but we quickly learn that he's just the type of person who needs to feel purpose in life, and he needs to feel useful. And at this point in his life, he has lost his job. They kind of pushed him out. His wife died a year before this takes place, and all of his neighbors seem like complete idiots. So at this point, Uve's just fed up, and he decides it's a good idea to go and join his wife, Sonia. So each day, Ove is attempting to end his life because he wants to go be with Sonia. But the kicker is this: each day, purpose presents itself at Uve's front door. So this book follows Uve's attempts at ending his life while subsequently learning about his childhood, his time with Sonia, and really building a community in his neighborhood, which is, I know, seems like complete opposite of what I first said. But this book is just amazing, you guys. I absolutely loved it. I love the storyline. Obviously, the biggest trigger with this book is suicide, but the way that Fredrik Backman does it, there's so much comic relief. There's so many funny little quippy characters that kind of pull us out of something that's very serious and very depressing into not comical, but it makes it readable. So going into why I love this book, there are so many reasons, so I'm going to try and keep this concise, but the biggest one has to be, for me, the irony. Ove has one goal. His goal is to end his life, yet he ends up building an entire community in his neighborhood that wasn't really there before. Like, people interacted, but because of Ove and all the things that he provides for them and all the help that he's giving, this whole neighborhood is united now. From the very beginning of the book, it is evident that Ove does not like people, and I don't know if it's that he doesn't like people, he just thinks that people are stupid. He's very black and white, right? He's logical, and everything has its place, and there's a rule for everything, and that's just the way Ove lives his life. So Ove gets a new neighbor. This is where we first learn about Parvana, which is he calls her the foreign pregnant woman in the book at first, but then eventually he starts calling her by her name, which we love it. And Parvana and Patrick, that is her husband, who is also known as the lanky one, are first introduced when Uve's trying to, number one, attempt to kill himself. Gosh. End his life. I'm gonna try to avoid saying kill himself because that's just like, oh. But anyways, that's attempt number one at suicide. And Parvana comes in his life because Patrick is trying to back up his car and their trailer. They're moving into the neighborhood, and they're like running all over Uve's flowers, and they're just a hot mess. Ove immediately takes a liking, I think, to Parvana because she forces him to in the best way possible. She's the type of person who gets what she wants, and she wants to have a relationship with Ove, so that's just what happens. And then Patrick, aka the lanky one, I'm pretty convinced that his role in this book is just to provide some funny action because he is just so goofy. Uwe, I think, calls him a nitwit multiple times within the book, and he's just a hot mess, but it's totally fine. They have 2 daughters, and Parvana really is just like anchoring this family. She is strong-willed, like I said, she's a little pushy, but it just is who she is, and she really begins to pull Uwe out of his shell. I'm pretty sure the next character we are introduced to is Jimmy, which I think Uwe calls him the young overweight one or something like that. He's young and he's overweight, and he's like the sweetest little, like, bless your heart. If you're not from the US or from the South, you probably don't know what that means, but bless your heart is like a backhanded little compliment there. But he's so sweet, yet he's just so clueless. So that's Jimmy. Also creates some comic relief. And then we have another neighbor who he calls the blonde weed because she's tall and blonde. You kind of get the point of like the purpose of all these characters. Uwe is very black and white, and all of these other characters are just kind of all over the place. Yeah, so I think that really sums up why I love this book so much. The irony, I thought, was just a funny way to kick off the story, you know, trying to end your life, yet you end up building an entire community. The characters are so lovable, they're so relatable, and the way that this book is done just is amazing because we're talking about something so serious, but it doesn't really feel like we are, and the whole storyline just feels extremely relevant, even 12 years later, right? This was in 2012 and it's 2024, so even now this feels super relatable. Going into the 2 movie adaptations and what I thought of them, and I feel like a lot of times when I tell people I watched a movie after reading a book or vice versa, they're like, oh, which one did you like better? Well, I'm really not the best person to ask that question, because I think I will always look at them separately, because you have the book, which you can put so much detail into, and then you have movies and people's attention spans, and like you have to get your point across in a concise way, but you also have to like try to hold the integrity of the book. So I feel like that's the way I judge movies, on if they held the integrity of the book. And I can confidently say both adaptations did it amazingly, beautifully. I loved both movies for different reasons. I think I'll start off with Ove, which is the Swedish adaptation, which you can watch, at least if you're in America, because I know only about half of you are, but you can watch this on Tubi for free with ads. This was about 2 hours. Actually, both movies were 2 hours, but they both use the time very differently, so you'll see what I mean. A Man Called Ove film hit the nail on the head with getting all of the details from the book. Almost all of them. There was like 2 things that they missed, which wasn't a big deal at all, either way. But the way that they structured the movie, so each time Uwe was attempting suicide, they would go into kind of a lengthy flashback. It started off, it's like chronological, so it started off with his childhood, and then we move into whatever kind of pulls him out of the suicide attempt. So the first one being Parvana needing help with backing up their truck, and then the second one being he was in a car and we're in this lengthy flashback of his time with Sonia or his time with his dad, I can't remember. And then we're pulled out of the flashback because Parvana needs Uwe to drive her to the hospital because her husband, Patrick, has fallen off of the ladder. So the way that they use the flashbacks here, I really liked, because we got so much of that detail. So I liked this film because we got a clear backstory of Uwe, his childhood, his time with his father, his time with Sonia, which I was really craving from Otto. And then I also like this film because of its bluntness. So I'm obviously American. A lot of countries aren't as sensitive as America, so they can say more blunt things in movies, and I really appreciated this. Actually, watching this film reminded me, well, reading the book reminded me a lot of my husband's grandpa, and then watching the film, it's just like, this man even looks like my husband's grandpa. So I was just like, yes, I love it. I love everything about it. And my husband's grandpa was Canadian. So again, just like very relatable and just like the book. So going into A Man Called Ove, which is the American version of A Man Called Ove, well, first of all, you can watch this on Netflix. I was just gonna like jump right in because I really liked it. I watched it actually before A Man Called Ove. But you can watch this on Netflix if you have a subscription. The setting is in the Northeast in the USA. And I thought they did a really good job adapting the Swedish setting to America, because reading this was quite idealistic as an American. I was like, okay, the setting is cool, but I can't really envision a setting like this in America. But I thought they did a great job with the setting, and I thought they did some funny things. Like in Ove, there are these people called the White Shirts, which are developers. In Ove, the developers company is DYE, and America, so it sounds like Dying America, which I thought was like very clever. Good job on that one, because is it not? So I really appreciated the way that they morphed the setting and the setting up the movie for America. They also did some really creative things with the characters. So obviously Parvana, I mean, you might encounter Parvana in Pittsburgh, but you're probably more likely to encounter a Marisol in Pittsburgh. And Parvana was a Persian from Iran, and Marisol is Salvadorian from Mexico. So I thought that was very appropriate for America. They also combined two of the characters in Ove, Misrad and Adrian. So Adrian was someone in the neighborhood, or he was dating someone in the neighborhood, unclear on that situation. But really the more important character was Mirsad, who was gay, and when he came out to his dad, Ove took him in. So in Otto, Adrian / Mirsad is now Malcolm, who is a transgender boy who actually was in a class that Sonia, Uve's wife, or Uve / Otto's wife, taught. And again, Otto takes him in and helps him. I also wanted to talk about the flashbacks in A Man Called Ove because they were very different from the flashbacks in A Man Called Ove. So they were very short to start off. They were not like a lengthy story of his history, so it really left a lot of the character development and character details to the imagination, which is an American thing to do, by the way. I read somewhere that in America we have shorter attention spans, which is probably true. And in movies, they don't like to drag on topics. So that's probably why they did that. And that makes sense. And I really didn't mind, probably because I read the book though. But I did suggest this movie to my mom, and she watched it and she thought it was amazing. So I guess if you don't read the book, you probably are fine. And if you read the book, you're probably fine. But overall, I felt like A Man Called Ove was done really well. It kept the integrity of the book, which is, like I said earlier, the most important thing for me. I think it's very clear how I felt about this book and the movie adaptations. If I could give this book more than 5 stars, I would, because it was just that good. It's so relatable 12 years later. I keep saying that, but like, just amazing. Well, I hope you enjoyed this book and movie summary / review, and let me know what you thought of it in the comments. I am going to try and do more of these because I really get passionate about books. So I just need to come on here and talk about them. It takes a lot of prep work, but it's so totally worth it to maybe suggest something that wasn't even on your radar. So I will make an attempt to do more of these. And yeah, that's all I have for you. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.